am your host, Sarah Sorniak. I'm helping prepare you for your next journey and empower you to take it on. Whether you're searching for a job or facing a roadblock which led you to a detour in life, we're sharing stories that will help you put your best foot forward. Hi there. Today we are talking about the importance of workplace culture and environment, and I'm talking with Katie Krawczyk, who is the ever-active and inspired CEO and partner of 19 Ideas here in Buffalo, New York. Katie brings a deep background in communications and strategy to the foundation of the company. Her detailed visions of partnership, collaboration, and integration have made for a culture of success and trust for clients and staff alike. As 19 Ideas grows, so do its partners in the surrounding community. Katie works so hard to create an atmosphere that inspires others to also champion this growth in their daily practices, both personal and professional. Katie's progress-minded focus led 19 Ideas to be named the fastest growing company in Western New York for 3 years in a row, a top 5 finalist in 2018, and a consecutive name on the best places to work in Western New York list every year since 2015. Her leadership draws the right people in to align and together work with purpose. Katie has 20 years of broad-ranging experience in public and private sector work, both in Buffalo, New York, Washington, D.C., New York City, and Seoul, Korea. She has extensive expertise in developing and implementing targeted communication strategies aimed at reaching internal and external stakeholders, as well as the media. This is a very inspiring episode. I think Katie touched on so much of what is needed in workplace environment to inspire somebody, both whether you're an employee or employer. And I think heart is at the center of everything. And it's a really great episode. I really felt a great connection with Katie and such a level of warmth, a really amazing person. And I really hope you have a very inspiring takeaway from this episode as well, as you work to either create an environment in your workplace that is full of heart and a place where people want to work, or if you are on the hunt for the job and you're looking for the right culture and workplace environment to work in. And it doesn't matter if you're remote, hybrid, or in office, that culture transcends where you are working. Enjoy. Welcome, Katie Krawczyk, to the show. I really appreciate you taking the time out to hang with us and give us your perspectives on a lot of the topics we'll be talking today, which is the importance of workplace culture and environment. So welcome, Katie.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and 19 Ideas and what's going on before we start.
Yeah, so 19 Ideas is a strategic marketing agency. We are located on Buffalo's west side, proudly so. We've been in business since May of 2011. We moved to the west side in January of 15, so we've been here ever since. We have a full range of in-house services, from a full creative department to front-end development, software engineers, digital marketing, public relations, everything in between. So we really focus on the integrative aspect of marketing and pride ourselves on partnership with our clients. And around here, we say all things are possible. We love to work with purpose. These are some of our mantras and our philosophies that we've adopted over the years. And yeah, so that's us in a nutshell. My background is actually, I came up through the government route as a PR and communications professional. And when I met my now husband, then boyfriend at the time, Dan Giganti, he was just leaving Clever Method, the agency that he had co-founded and ran for 10 years, to launch You and Who, a buy one, give one t-shirt company, which later became 26 Shirts. When I met Dan, he was just an entrepreneur through and through. Never had the notion that I would ever be an entrepreneur myself, but I was inspired by Dan, and I was inspired by Amber Rampino, who's since become our longtime creative director, but Amber was on her own, and I thought maybe this is something that I could try to pursue, and I've been in business ever since.
And that's really amazing, because I know I've heard you mention in other interviews, you joke about not technically having agency experience.
Yes.
And you've made this wonderful business and culture in our little tight-knit Buffalo marketing community. So you just mentioned that your career spanned the fields of government and healthcare. Did your career path inspire you to want to create a culture that you'd want to work for?
100%. Yes. In fact, I would say that without those experiences, good, bad, and otherwise, I probably would not have been inspired to the degree that I became inspired, and I'm actually very motivated to this day. It's one of the driving forces that I have in really everything that I do. I've always been somebody who's been a people-centric person. I do consider myself an empath. I do feel that I bring a lot of compassion to situations in my life, personally and professionally. And I worked in situations where people were not always put first. And without naming specific situations or organizations that I worked for, just really saw firsthand and experienced firsthand what it feels like and what it can do to a person, whether it's yourself or those around you, when you are working for either an institution or somebody directly who does not only not value you or what you bring to the table, but could potentially actively hurt or emotionally hurt or just not support or set up an environment that is not healthy, to say the least. And that was something that really stuck with me. And I said to myself when I was, when I met Dan and I was inspired by Amber and I was thinking what my next move would be. And, when I took the leap to being on my own, I did not anticipate having a year and a half later hiring my first employee or becoming, the 20 plus agency that we are now. But when I was faced with the decision of bringing somebody on as a full-time employee, I really had a conversation with myself around, if I'm going to do this, what is this going to mean to that person? What is this place going to mean to anyone that we bring here? And what is it really going to mean to myself? Because, I think when you're a business owner, you forget that you're an employee too.
Yeah.
And it's easy to treat others a certain way, and you forget to treat yourself in the same manner, in a good way. Some business owners might prioritize the opposite. The big ones, the big conglomerates of the world, I think we all are familiar with. Maybe they prioritize themselves over their employees. But I think for those of us who have a small business, many of us put our employees before ourselves. So it's really about building an environment that not only is making sure that the people who are here have the best experience possible, and then also creating an environment where I can also thrive. And that's actually very difficult. It's something I've been looking at recently a lot lately.
So, I mean, in true empath fashion, because I'm a fellow empath, just like hearing you talk right now too. I mean, you've put a lot of thought and reflection into this, especially like setting that foundation. So what were like the key wish list items, from that reflection that you really thought like this is going to be the culture aspects?
Yeah, I think that and there's a lot of different answers to that. I'll say there's some key things like, I think first and foremost, listening to people. I think being heard is something that foundationally we all have a need for, a human need to be heard and understood, that I think so many of us probably don't have the tools to articulate what those needs are. But, it's not just being an empath. I've also had a lot of, I have no shame in saying this. I've been in therapy for a dozen years based on the circumstances I've had in my life. And I think it's made me a much stronger and intuitive person to connect, not just with myself, but with others. And so what I've learned over the years through a lot of that work that I've done is the notion of being heard, being validated. It's sometimes you might not go with somebody's idea, but it's really just giving them the opportunity to be listened to. and to be listened to respectfully. So those are, and building, I think, a culture of respect. It's what I've been talking about a lot lately, is what does that look like? Those are really key factors. Obviously, you want things like, you want to build in a culture of respect, but also trust. Well, how do you do that? Well, elements that go into that would also be truth and transparency. I think that's hard for business owners, from how transparent are you? And it's not about lying in any sense or misleading. It's more about, what are the things that you can share that is going to empower and not make employees either afraid or feel like, well, I don't have any control over that, so now I'm just going to worry about something that's totally out of my control. So I've been looking at that too, like, how can I bring people closer in so they understand better about some of the decisions that are made within the company, but in a way that's going to make them feel good about their position and good about the company, and not try to mitigate fear or uncertainty or doubt. So I think some of those, like, kind of emotional aspects are what I really focus on. There's elements too, and I know we'll talk about this later with, like, the physical space. And, I think there's the elements of the physicality of the office, but it's also, I think, when the pandemic first happened, there was a lot of conversation around, oh, well, the office is dead. It's not happening. People are not going back to office spaces anymore. Why would they? And I think in a lot of cases, yeah, people decided that was not for them. We went the opposite way. We looked at ourselves, and we looked at what made our team and our company, I don't want to say special, like we're special, but what was that thing for us? And the thing for us has always been the team culture and the team emphasis. And yes, there's ways you can build strong remote teams, but I think for us, it was really about the in-person connection. And I think emphasis on connection is really the key. If you don't have a connection, and us as marketers, our whole reason for being is to connect with people on some level. You're trying to get people to do something, believe in something, buy something, educate themselves in a certain way, whatever the case may be. If we ourselves don't have that connection, how can we then foster a connection with audiences that we are not directly in touch with? So those are really, like, the key elements that have kind of always been there, and recently, like, what I've been focused on lately.
That's I think so key. I mean, that's what's going to build your foundation for everything, culture aspect wise, and kind of creating an inclusiveness as well, like you're saying, like that connection. Would you say, because I've heard you say in other podcasts in the past, I think a while ago you had quoted like Richard Branson when it came to like what you wanted to create, like kind of like happy people equals happy product, happy customer.
Yes.
Would you agree?
Yes. Our mission is happy team, happy clients. That's the end state. That's the goal, right? And Richard Branson, it's the famous line of, you take care of your people, they will in turn take care of your customers. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. And actually that was a big thing I thought about. One of the major aspects I thought about when specifically thinking about how to build out the space in a way that was going to excite, comfort, inspire people. Just thinking about, like, if I really took care of my team in a way that they really felt taken care of. We are in the business of client services. We are in the business of people. We have two groups of people that I am focused on at any given time, my team and my clients. If I can focus on my team, they can focus on my clients. And if I want them to treat my clients or our clients in a 5-star capacity, top line service capacity, then I first need to show them what it's like to be treated in a way that they're going to understand, and a deep internal knowing to then be able to turn around and say, like, yeah, I get it. And I get how I need to approach our clients. And actually, This is what I love about this work. It's not just about the transactional nature of us as an agency working with clients. These are life skills. Like, I hope that anyone who works here, that's really, like, I think the true success of what I would want to be measured by is how well did somebody learn something here that they took forward in their life, and whether their personal relationships, their professional relationships. That's really the key.
Oh, that is key. I mean, we're always, I think we always need to be on the lookout and always for the life lesson. You know, once we're done with school and have a degree, it doesn't end there. The learning kind of keeps going, and that's huge.
Yeah.
What is your process for evaluating company culture when you're kind of wanting to take the gauge of, you know, how are things going? Do you do a look back? Do you get input from your team to get a pulse on how things are going and where you can make adjustments?
Yeah. So back to that whole open communication, doors always open. One of the things that I have done now for, I think it's been now the last 5 years, I do quarterly coffees with everyone on my team. And with my directors, which make up our leadership team, I meet with each of them monthly, but with everyone, and those are the people that directly report to me. Everyone else who does not directly report to me, I make sure that we meet at least 3 times a year, if not 4 times a year. And sometimes I'll occasionally ask somebody to come to lunch, or, you know, in addition to that, because I want FaceTime with people. And I also want them to feel like they've got FaceTime with me. So I think in those moments, it's not just about relationship building. It's really being able to ask where they're at with things. Now, you know, I can provide the setting, I can ask the questions. Every relationship is a two-way street. I ask for truth and transparency from my employees the way I would give it to them. So I want them to feel safe and comfortable with me to be able to express themselves truly. Not everyone can, or maybe some can only to a certain degree, because I think we unfortunately are conditioned as a society to think about your boss or your employer a certain way, and you've got to hold things back. It is what it is. So I'm trying to just give people an opportunity, as much as they are willing, to come to the table and be able to express themselves. So in that way, you know, I learn a lot. I learn a lot, not just in like oh yeah, the office feels really great, or I wish we had a cappuccino machine. No one says that, but it's not really about that. It's
Right.
more like, how are things going? How are you doing? Are you happy? Do you feel like you're getting the work that you want? Are you motivated and excited by the work that you have? What are the challenges you're facing?
What it comes down to too, like what you're saying, and you've mentioned before, it's like that human connection and that ability for that person to feel heard, I think is huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is where I was going with this too. I've uncovered a lot in those coffee meetings based on like things that weren't working well operationally, like certain aspects of how we were trying to get the work done, or just aspects of the team not working super well together. Not that people weren't getting along, but more like things were getting caught process wise in certain things that were becoming pain points. And you know what I really value is, by doing that, I'm getting the full view of the picture, because I'm talking to everybody. So I'm not just leading a department and I've only got the view of one specific department, or I'm a member within a department and I've only gotten a certain view of what I'm working on day to day. No one can connect the dots for me in the way that I can connect the dots by talking to everybody. And it's been invaluable. So and a lot happens in those coffee meetings. Not only is it fostering a relationship, it's also building trust. It's also hopefully, again, providing a safe space for people to feel like they can express themselves, and know that from that, it's not about a tattling session. It's not about, I'm going to go talk to so-and-so because I've heard bad things. It's more about, I empower and trust my directors to lead their departments, and I trust and empower every individual employee to do the job that they're hired to do. What I try to do in those moments is look at the big picture and say, is the culture supporting the work and the people in the way that it needs to, and not just in the fun, happy hour, we're grabbing lunch today kind of way, but in the every day I come in and I enjoy being here because I feel truly supported in my job.
I think it's really powerful too for, to have that trust built between you and your team, individually, to have that question asked of, are you happy? I think that speaks volumes. Because, we spend so much of our day-to-day lives, our whole life working, right? That, you want to enjoy what you're doing, love what you're doing, because as they, say, you never work a day in your life if you love what you're doing. And I think that that's a huge, powerful check-in with somebody to do that.
Yeah.
So
thanks for that. I mean, those are the important things that I really prioritize. And when I do those coffees, it is as important as any client meeting that I would have. This whole business is based around the people that I have on this team at any given time, and I totally recognize that this is not the Katie Krawczyk show, and it never has been. That's why we're 19 Ideas. It was never about one person. It's about the collective,
Oh, absolutely. So since we're in a creative field, and work-life balance is crucial, especially, for a creative recharge, when we're getting to work in these campaigns and such. 19 Ideas has a company shutdown during the holiday season, along with unlimited PTO. There are a lot of companies that have gone this route. However, those big box corporate companies, they haven't, maybe for whether it's cost prohibitive, I don't know, or fear of abuse. Can you kind of explain how it works and how it's been going for your team?
Yeah. So I think, and this really comes back to building a culture of trust. And it also comes down to like making sure who is on your team, and feeling really good about the people that you hire. Because here's the other thing, the culture does not live and die with me. It's a living, breathing thing that everybody in these four walls needs to honor and treat with the same care and respect that I've brought to the table as the formerly one woman show when it was just me at 19 Ideas. They all have to buy into it in order for it to be preserved. And I think we've got some people here who have been with us for a long time, who understand and get who we are at our core and what that culture means, and the ethos by which we live and our values. Because again, it's not just the fun things. Anyone can do fun things. If there isn't the values that are there to back up those things, or that really add up to your day-to-day, because happy hours are not every day. It's the 8 hours that you put into the work. That's your average week is your culture, not the special things that happen every now and then. So I think having those people on the team are crucial, because then when we invite other people into the team, there is an expectation or a standard that has been set of, this is who we are, this is our culture, this is how we look at things, these are our values, and this is the expectation as a team member of 19 Ideas. And I think people really respect it because they understand how important these things are to us. And we really, really make a point of living these values every day. You mentioned PTO. So I say all of this because, when you have trust and you build genuinely a culture of trust and respect, then there should be an understanding of when you look at something like an unlimited PTO policy, we call it responsible PTO, and we do that intentionally because yes, it is unlimited in practice, but it's meant to be a policy where you should be taking advantage of it, where you need to take advantage of it, but also you are a part of a team, and making sure that you are not looking out only for yourself, that you are thinking about the team, the broader team, as part of, in balance with your own needs, right? So if you're taking off 5 weeks out of the year, but most of your teammates have only taken 2, we ask people to do that sort of self-management and introspection of what is the right thing to do. Do the right thing is a core value. Place team above self is a core value. These are things that we ask of people when they're making decisions for themselves. And that's not to say the policy is there, but don't really use it. No, people use it. They take advantage of it, but it's always in the context of, is now the right time? Have I checked in? Do I have my work done? Is now just generally not a good time to be away because the company, really needs me? So I think, and it's worked for us. We've had that policy in place since I think 2015 or 16. And we've done a company shutdown every year since we've been around. I didn't do it when it was just me, but the first year, the second year in business is when I had my first employee, and we did a shutdown that week, or that last week of the year. And it was great.
That's really amazing. So 2015, you started like the responsible PTO time. That's like really far ahead of what or when other companies have done it. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, and again, and I said it at the time when I was rolling it out to people, it might have been 16 now that I say that, just looking and who was here at the time. Yeah. But that's now 6 going on to 7 years. And at the time when I rolled it out, we were a little bit of a smaller company, say about a dozen or so people. And I said to the team, this is something that could easily be abused, and we'll watch it and see how it goes. And it was rolled out as a pilot program. But I said, this is something that, I really trust you guys. But anyone that comes along in the future, like, we need to hold ourselves and each other to a certain standard. And I feel like people have really done a great job of that.
That's great. So right before the pandemic hit, you were set to unveil the remodeled space at 19 Ideas. So now that we're kind of in the world of normalcy with, I think you guys are working in a hybrid capacity right now. Mm-hmm. So now that you're finally in you've been in the space for a bit now, but so, initially kind of like going back a bit, like what initially inspired you to want to give the space a fresh feel?
Yeah, so I think there was the practical nature of just needing physically more space, specifically more bathroom space. And like I said, we've been in our building on Essex Street since January of 2015. And we love it here. This is so us in such an essential way. Dan and I looked at a bunch of spaces downtown. We considered, should we be moving into more of the central business district? Is there some sort of intrinsic value, where people can kind of see your name on the outside of a building? Are we missing out on business opportunities? We asked ourselves those questions, and we did a bunch of tours. And I have to be totally honest, there was no soul in those spaces whatsoever. And there is soul in this building. And it is not something I can explain. It is only something you can feel. And it's one of those, it when you know it. And I had a vision or a sense of what I wanted to do. And this is what I mean. I could, in my mind, try to apply the vision to any of those spaces. And could we have done it? Sure. But it would not have been the same, not in any stretch of the imagination, because of how the building felt, how the space felt. Your experience walking into the building, and then even just coming up to wherever our suite would have been, would not have been the same versus, had we left Essex Street. And, after seeing probably a dozen or more spaces, and this would have been, I believe, fall of, 18, I think. Yeah, fall of 18. Dan and I just kind of said, you know what? Like, we love Essex, and we feel like not only comfortable here, like this is our home, but there's a lot of soul here. There's a lot of history here. It is a creative complex of artists. There's so much history with Hallwells being birthed here and the Griffiths family. And it just felt right. And so we leaned into Essex and we did the vision. And I think it turned out exactly as I had hoped it would. And so specifically, we did all the work in 2019. The project, of course, like any construction project, gets delayed. Okay, we're going to unveil it on March 20th, 2020.
Oh my God.
The week before. And I was like, okay, guys, we'll be back and we'll reevaluate in 2 weeks. Yeah, no, but we were remote for 11 months before we brought people back. But we did unveil it. We had an outdoor happy hour. We brought in groups of like 4 people at a time to kind of walk them through. And I think it sufficiently blew people's minds. I intentionally kind of kept it a secret. I didn't tell people, what we're doing. Back to one of your earlier questions, I do survey the team, not just with the coffees, but we do actively send out surveys. We probably send out a couple surveys a year just to get the beat on things. We hired a friend of ours and who we contract with for other work, market researcher named Christy Francis. I hired Christy to do one-on-one interviews with all the team to talk about like their work styles, how they like to work during the day. And we did some other surveys. She also interviewed some of our clients. So we did all of that work to really kind of match up with them the vision. And the bottom line is what I built downstairs and what we also renovated in our top floor stairs where we've been for the last 7 years is really creating a space that is trying to invoke, well, back to what I said earlier, connection, but it's a deeper connection of connecting to inspiration, connecting to your own personal creativity, and connecting to that thing within yourself that can excite, inspire, and motivate you through your day. And I thought about it for myself. I own this building, or excuse me, I don't own the building. I own the company, and I was feeling depleted and like it was a struggle for me to come in day to day. And it wasn't because of my physical environment. It was because of the work. It was a lot of work. I was grinding. And, we operate in a tough industry. And I love to travel. Dan and I love to travel. And we were doing a lot of traveling at the time that we were getting married. We were traveling overseas, specifically to Ireland a lot, to England. And I was so inspired by our travels, because when you're traveling like that, especially to a foreign country, all of your senses are on high. You're experiencing everything from sight, smells, taste, feeling like you're just, it is such I find all of my like pleasure centers in my brain just light up. And it's one of those moments where I'm like, how can we bottle? There's got to be a way that we can tap into this on a day-to-day basis. I don't want to just travel someplace great once a year and get my fill that way. And I started to really kind of look at like, well, what are the things that really excite that could translate home? And you see this wallpaper behind me, bold design, fantastical design, leaning into the fantasy of some things. And I know that might sound crazy, putting fantasy in an office setting, but why not? You look at anything, especially in London, oh my gosh, restaurants, retailers, companies that historically like might not invest in like the design of a space and the customer experience of when you physically walk into a place, invest in a way that I think is unusual. And I wanted to do that here. And I enlisted the help of Michael P. from Michael P. Design, and he understood exactly what I wanted to do. And we brought it to life. And we didn't do the thing on paper that you're supposed to do of, well, do these numbers make sense? Does it add up? Should you be spending that much? It's all about the intangible and the intrinsic value of when somebody walks into our front door, they immediately know if this place is the right place for them, whether they're a prospective client or a prospective employee. And that is hugely valuable.
When you think about it, number one, it's you've got to like recharge that creativeness in an environment. But it's also, when you think about, I don't know, I think when I was a teenager, after school, you go to your best friend's house, and that feeling of, it's like your second home. You feel comfortable. And when you feel comfortable, it's like going back to that building the trust factor, right? And feeling safe in a space. And that safety, I feel like in life, just from my life experiences, safety in a workplace, when you feel safe, you feel open. It's that going right back to that trust thing that you've talked about.
Absolutely. And then, layered on top of the beautifulness or the prettiness or the inspiring aesthetics. It was also thinking about, how do people need to work in their day? Like, do they need quiet space? Do they need space to get up and stand up? Do they need to be, we have an open environment. So are there times when they need to be at what I call their home base, their home desk, versus like they just kind of need to move around? And it's what I witnessed over the years of people kind of floating with their laptops. They'll go to like we have a full kitchen. So a lot of people would sit at the kitchen counter or the kitchen table. So I specifically built out different work zones and work opportunities throughout the space. So not only are your senses are getting tantalized, including we have aromatherapy piping, and we installed Sonos speakers so we can play different music, but we have different work zones to kind of ignite your brain at different parts of the day when you might hit a lull, but yet you're expected to perform,
Sure. So I wanted to ask you that too, because I had noticed in other interviews and even with, seeing photos of the space on social, how you had different unique spaces.
Yeah.
Can you kind of go in? I know you're kind of starting to go into a little bit about these spaces, but what you're basically saying what inspired it was just kind of watching how people watching how your team was utilizing things before.
Yes. So we have, so like I said, everyone is in an open environment. Dan and I have the only 2 offices, closed door offices, but we have also converted our space. Like where I'm sitting right now, my desk is that way, and I'm sitting on a couch with 2 bistro tables, and I have 2 kind of those rolly chair things that double as storage. So I can have a meeting of upwards of 5 people in my office. So a lot of like thinking about how spaces can double and triple for certain things. Flexibility was the name of the game for us. We have a dedicated creative space that's built out for our creative team to do a variety of things that they need to do that's, requires them to get up from their desk, including, a cutting and printing station. We have a library, what I've called the library, and that is a no talking, no eating zone for silent work. And we have a different Sonos speaker in there to pipe, more concentration music. And it's a closed door policy, and you sign up on a whiteboard outside so people aren't opening the door looking for people. It's intentional in that way. We have an empty office next to Dan and I that we have for rotation. So it's a closed door office space. You can take a meeting in there if you need to go heads down and you want to, but still be at a desk. You've got that as an option. Downstairs, we built out what I call, so we've got the park and we've got houses along what I've dubbed Cherry Tree Lane. Our houses are essentially, I guess, cubbies in a way. It's like or carols, like library carols, if you remember back in the day, but
yeah,
we have 3 singles, and then 2 doubles. And the doubles can fit upwards of 4 people. So it can be individual work, it can be group work. And those houses kind of indicate, I'm available if you want to talk, but I'm not as available. Kind of like I just need to kind of do my own thing, especially if you're in a single. We have 2 soundproof booths that you can take a phone call or a Zoom call if you need to be, complete privacy. But we also, as one of our benefits, and this is a post-pandemic thing, we bought these booths before the pandemic. And then obviously when everything happened with the pandemic, as I said earlier, I'm a big, huge advocate of mental health and emotional health. So we bought everybody a license to the Calm app. So you can go in there, you're encouraged, do the meditation, recenter yourself if you need that in the middle of your day. No one's going to judge you for it. In fact, it's encouraged. So there's that. There's, like I said, the park, which is meant to be the most flexible space. We have windows on the park that also double as a whiteboard. So you can go in there and host kind of an open brainstorm. When I say open, it doesn't have any walls. So, it would have to be a meeting, like you'd be okay with somebody walking by or maybe overhearing what you have to say, but not everything needs a closed door conversation. So where can you use the park for either an open meeting, open brainstorm? Do you want to bring your lunch and eat down there? We've also got chess and checkers and, nobody smokes really anymore the way they did in maybe like the 80s or 90s, where you take a smoke break for 10 minutes outside. But that means you should still get up from your desk and take a break for 10 minutes. So our smoke break in a 2.0 kind of sense is like play a game, play some cards, have a chess match, and it's things that, like, again, kind of get you breaking up the monotony of your day to day. Sometimes you just kind of need that break or different kind of mental stimulation in order to come back to your job. And you might then get the answer you were stuck on, that wasn't coming to you before.
That's so true. Sometimes you got to step away to get a surge, no doubt.
Right.
So as a business owner, what do you think is the most challenging aspect of ensuring a good workplace environment and company culture?
Oh God, that's such a good question. Yeah, because I think, well, people are the hardest part. And that might sound like a funny or glib answer, but
So many different personalities when you think about it in life, right?
That's it. Exactly. So many different personalities. People have, everyone is different. Everyone's coming from things from a different background and experience, and like what they've gone through in their lives and how they look at the world through different lenses. And everyone has different expectations, and everyone thinks they communicate well. You only know what you know. So like you're only able to communicate or hear people as well as you think you can, right? So I think just trying to have a people business, and not just with the team, but also then servicing people, i.e. our clients, but trying to create a language, and that language is vis-a-vis our culture, that everyone can align to as best as they can possibly align to it, coming from all those different backgrounds and experiences. And I think that is the biggest challenge. And that comes out in probably every conversation, situation. We all have different seats that we sit in. We all have different perspectives. We all know different things, and how to get everybody aligned to a bigger, broader picture at all times is the biggest challenge, right? Because you're trying to move as one unit, one team.
Oh, that's definitely true. Especially like, you kind of, that aha moment of, we all have different life experiences. I know like that, I come from the place of empathy as well. Like if someone's I always remind myself this person's probably the way that they are because of, their life story, what have you. So I can only imagine, from the business owner perspective, to try to align or try to, bring it full circle can be challenging with different personalities.
Yeah. And I think also what's difficult is, as much as I try to be forthright, open, honest about things, like you can't possibly tell everyone everything at all times. And there are unfortunate decisions you might have to make that are tough, that people are just maybe not going to understand. And they can't understand because they don't have all the information, or even if they had the information, they're not in your shoes. And I think that's what gets hard, because I am so focused on people, and my heart is always focused on trying to do what's best for people, that it's the kind of thing that honestly eats me up a little bit more than it should, more than what the experts say it should. Business is business. Don't take it personally. Yeah, right. This is the most personal thing I've ever done in my life. Everything I do is from a personal perspective. I make it personal because I don't subscribe to the sterile way of doing business, and I don't treat people as commodities. And it eats me up inside if something doesn't go well. I feel a personal responsibility to all those people out there. And business is hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And inevitably you're going to disappoint somebody, and that hurts. As weird as that sounds, it hurts. It really hurts,
Oh, I know. And it's hard too, because you can't, you always hear like people say in business, like, oh, you have to separate yourself, but that's really difficult to do. especially, as a caring person. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give job seekers to ask or even look for regarding culture and the working environment when they're looking at potential employers?
Yeah. Great question. Because it's definitely a two-way street, just like any relationship is a two-way street. You know, you're being evaluated as a job seeker, to see if you're the right fit, both in terms of the skills and also probably within the environment that you're coming into. But likewise, as the job seeker, I think one of the key things I always try to pay attention to, not just what's being said, but what's not being said, and the energy of a room, the vibe of a room, and also how people are interacting with each other. So what I would say is be very attuned to how, assuming that you interview with multiple people within a company, how they interact with each other. How are they speaking with each other? How are they vibing with each other? What are you getting from them? Because that's going to tell you a lot about the environment you're probably walking into. And I would ask questions, maybe even related to those people, like what's the relation to those people? Because you could have a boss, like a CEO type person in the room, with other people who don't report to that boss, right? So like try to also understand like what you're gauging, because it could be that you're seeing something that might be an anomaly, but then that's maybe something to ask about. Like, why is the CEO in the room for a position if this position doesn't report to the CEO? Well, you might find out that the CEO is a very involved CEO. Is that something you like or don't like? I think these are all things to kind of pay attention to. I would also say, this is again going to sound really cheesy, but I think this is so true. And I think the more that people in our society become more awake to a lot of the BS that we have kind of set as far as parameters, you should act this way, you should be this way, this is what business environment should be like. I think a lot of that is antiquated nonsense that a sleepier society agreed to years ago. Well, I think as a result, just make sure that you are who you are, because who you are is going to come out at some point. So make sure you're with your people.
Absolutely.
You know?
That I can't even tell you. I mean, I think all of us throughout our life experience can easily, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I, in my past, walked into job interviews where I just like the energy you just wanted to run from because it didn't scream right, or you felt the energy was amazing and you just would do anything to be a part of that team. So I think that that's a huge, huge thing to go off of. And in my life, I don't know about you, I've always regretted when I didn't listen to my gut instinct.
100%. You nailed it, Sarah. That was the other thing. Yeah, please. What did you learn?
Regrets in life were not listening to the gut instinct. So if anybody out there is listening and something in you is like, I don't know if I should take this opportunity. And it could just be, I should take this opportunity because all the benefits are amazing, but I don't feel right about it. Don't do it.
You nailed it. That was, I took a job I had the gut feeling it was not the right job for me. It was not the right environment. Nothing about it really was a yes for me. And I declined the opportunity at first, and they came back a second time and they offered me a very generous salary and package, the whole nine, the title, all of it. And I said to myself, okay, if I take this job, it'll set me up on a path, do it for a year, get the experience, yada, yada. Well, that job did not last very long because it was not the right job for me. It was not the right environment. I was very unhappy, very unhappy. And that, I think in a lot of ways, that experience was valuable because I got so low that it then actually inspired me to start my own thing and just kind of see where that path took me. So there can always be good things that come out of negative situations. Absolutely. Potentially, but I totally agree with you. Money is important, yes, because we all need to survive. We all want to have the life that we want to live, and you need money to do those things. Benefits are important, yes. Title is important, yes. If you're looking to advance your career, sure. But I think this is also why, I want to create an environment where, yes, I can pay people well and I can treat them well and do all those things. But I also know that if you don't have foundational things in place to make people feel like they are welcomed and they are there, they are set up for success, then what do you really have? And as a job seeker, if you're also only saying yes to something because it's good on paper or it'll advance you later or the money's really good, okay, but that doesn't last long. At some point in your life, you are going to inherently want more.
And I mean, again, from experience, like I had a situation like a number of years ago where it was a job that just wasn't a fit. And it just plagues you. And I'm sure there are people out here listening that are like, yes, where it makes an impact on your mental health with even like your friends and your family, because you're that unhappy, it starts bleeding through. So for any of those people out there, just keep hunkering down and looking. And when you do find the fit, it just makes you appreciate that job that much more when you're happy too.
Absolutely. And I also feel like I'm a big student of energy, and I'm very much a believer in the things that are the thing that you need will make itself available to you at the right time. Meaning, like, there might be something, even again, if it's in a negative sense, you've got to go through something because you have to learn something from that. So that you can carry that learning with you to the next thing. But I also think I find that if you're a job seeker and you're running into a lot of resistance, and it's not to say that there aren't certain realities of a situation, like if suddenly the job market tightens and there's not as many opportunities, obviously that's a very real thing. But I also look at, there's been times in my life when I might have been going towards something, but I was getting resistance or roadblocks. That is also something, pay attention to the signs around you, pay attention to what's happening, because that sometimes is, I think in my world, it's the universe that's saying to me, this is maybe not the direction you need to go in. And again, having the self-reflection to say, okay, well, if I'm getting a lot of resistance or I'm not getting yeses and I'm trying to pursue this path, then maybe do I need to reevaluate? Is this the path that I want to be on? Is there resistance within myself? Is that's why I'm not getting a job in this arena? And maybe sometimes it's more having more of that self-reflection and discovery to say, I thought I wanted this, or maybe this is the thing that I thought I needed to do or should be doing, but actually I really want to pursue this thing over here. And then the doors open. I think you got to kind of pay attention to when the doors fly open versus when they're not.
I totally agree with the universe kind of revealing itself, because, and for the people that might be getting no's, who knows, maybe all those interviews were, the perfect amount of practice you needed to land that dream or that perfect opportunity that you wanted, that you didn't know was coming out. And the opportunities always come out of left field too, that message in an inbox, just hang in there. I'm definitely a full believer in that as well.
Absolutely. And I think everyone needs to kind of also, it took me a lot of years to to start to really believe this, but I think you have to kind of really look at, like, when you get a no, it's not a bad thing. And a no could come in many different forms. I think the no can immediately hurt, but if you go deeper than the surface level hurt, it's really like, okay, what is this showing me? What is this teaching me? If we take the good or the bad that we assign yes and no out of a situation, and it is as it is, then the no can be as powerful, if not more so powerful than a yes, because it could be situational or it could be directional. It could, you could pivot completely based on certain no's. So I think, like, just for people that are out there that are maybe getting a lot of no's, there's an opportunity within the no to really kind of go within and find out what is it that you really need and want in this life, right? And in this moment.
It's a perfect way to look at it. So on the flip side, what pieces of advice would you give to employers who may be listening to this and, it's giving them thought, pause, even to maybe even looking to overhaul their own culture and work environment?
So my advice to employers would be the same, in a very similar thread that I just said to employees. And that is, stop box checking and be genuine. Who are you really? Do things from a genuine place. Don't do things because it's contrived or it's the latest thing, or you feel you have to keep up, or you have to compete with your competitors, or you got to do the latest thing. If it is not true, if you don't truly know who you are, whether you're a job seeker or you're a business, and not just the owner, but the culture that you collectively as a company agree to, if you don't know who you truly are, and you cannot articulate who you really are to yourself first and then to others, it's going to feel disingenuous and it's going to feel contrived. And I think people need to embrace the truth of who they are, who their company is, and understand what that truth is, and then live the truth. I think there's just a lot of box checking that happens in business. And I think there's also maybe too some on the flip side. I'm sure there's people who hear me talk and maybe it makes them feel very uncomfortable because I'm talking about what could be considered touchy-feely things. And I think there's a lot of people who turn off their feelings and like don't want to hear anything about it, don't want to know it. And this is not the place to talk about this stuff, is in business. We're here to make money. We're here to be profitable. And I just foundationally disagree. I think you can have a thriving business if you lean into our humanity, and our humanity inherently is how we feel in any given moment. The global economy is based on anyone's given fears, the collective's fears at any given time. Our world is run on feelings. So to say, shut all that off in the business setting, it makes no sense whatsoever.
And again, it goes back to you're spending more than half of your life, half of your day. I think so many, like you probably spend the majority of your waking days with your team versus maybe even your family some weeks, right?
Yes.
So it goes like if you don't have the feelings in the workplace, you're kind of operating without a heartbeat, I think, in that capacity.
Beautifully said. Absolutely. The heartbeat is a great word. And I think another thing is something that in particular in meditation lately, for those who meditate, there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who now are talking about the benefits of meditation. A lot of what I learned in my own spiritual practices about heart coherence. And it's meditation, but it's meditation less. Yes, it's to quiet the mind, but it's not just quieting the mind, it's quieting the inside. And it's quieting the inside in order to feel coherent with what's in your heart. Again, that might sound over the top cheesy for some, but I think there is so much value. And if you can truly know who you are on the inside, and you can have enough quiet to be able to articulate it and identify it, or identify then articulate, what's stopping you from anything? What's stopping you from achieving anything? Nothing, because that's who you are, your soul, your core. And you can't do anything wrong at that point.
I totally agree. And there's just something to be said about when you're living a fulfilled life, the amount of happiness that can bring you and others is just a full circle thing.
Yeah.
But I think we've given job seekers and even some employers some valuable things to think about as they look into jobs, or maybe even look into reevaluating their culture aspects. So Katie, I thank you so much for joining me. I think this was a really inspiring conversation.
Thank you so much. I feel very passionate about this, and I love talking about it. I don't always get it right. I am a work in progress like We all are. And I just try to live every moment of every day learning and doing better. And I try to do as right by people as I can. I try to do right by myself as much as I can. And my hope is that my words can connect with others, that whatever that might mean for them is a meaningful takeaway. So just thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. The more that we can all live a heart-centered life, I think the better our planet will be.